Amazing Wednesday. How about you?
I am doing absolutely fantastic and glad to be here on this side of things, as I always say. And we certainly thank God for you and what you add to our little program here. And we definitely don't take for granted. Dr. Kim comes to us with a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of information, and she helps us with life strategies and be successful in the workplace. That's right, y'all, using biblical principles. And that's the most exciting thing about it, all the while using biblical principles. So we're going to have this discussion this evening, and this is about leadership. And you can have a random thought, and then you'll post a random thought, and then that random thought will sometimes just kind of take feet of its own, right?
Exactly.
Right. So that's what we're going to talk about. And this came from a post because leadership, you have to make difficult decisions. And if you are interested in being in the popularity contest, if you're interested in being in the Like Me Club, maybe leadership may not be for you, because leaders, they must be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because there are tough decisions that have to be made. So we're going to talk about that, Dr. Kim. How important is it to really understand and grasp hold of that element on leadership?
Oh, yeah. When we think about it, Jermaine, a lot of people want leadership, especially when it comes to corporate America, because it gives us a position of authority and influence, and then some perspective or perceived power. And so we typically seek leadership positions because of salary, or we would like to have an increase in those particular areas. However, when you think of leadership, you really not have to think about what comes with it, but you also have to think about why you want to lead others. And so it is truly imperative that you understand not just what leadership characteristics you must have or skills you must develop, but you need to really understand the core of why do you want to lead others. Because when you think about it, Jermaine, leadership is not just about a position. It's about being able to pull out those. First of all, you have to be a visionary, and you have to have a visionary perspective, and then getting others to see the vision and then influencing them in the workplace. And the critical part that a lot of leaders miss is not just about managing work processes or managing the function of work. Leadership is about leading others to be able to pull out the best in them, to discover those hidden gems in skill, in behavior, in performance that they didn't even know they had. And so that's what the true reality of leadership is.
Right, and I'm glad that you make that point. It's really about developing others and helping others to grow. It's so much not being seen. So when we talk about being leadership and helping them grow, a lot of times adversity is what causes growth. So leaders have to be versed in being adversarial at times, but in a loving, supportive way.
Oh, yeah. I call that more so having the courage to make those leadership decisions. And so in corporate America, we call it managerial courage, but I would like to call it leadership courage, because courage is doing those things, again, that you would do in spite of what you are up against, what the outcome may look like from a popularity perspective, but having that courage to make a decision, and it may not be the popular decision, but is it the best for the outcome and for the vision and for the direction of those in which you lead. One thing, when you have courage, it will establish not only that you sit in a position of leadership, but it establishes credibility, and it also establishes transparency and trust. You can't be a leader if you do not trust the team. It's not just necessarily about trusting that person or individuals who lead you, but as a leader, you have to trust the individuals that you lead. And if you're continuously looking over your shoulder as a leader, how can you then cast vision for the objective or the project or your team?
Right.
I mean, we have to think about it. How can you then cast a vision if you're always looking backwards?
Absolutely.
And so we have to think about that, even when others don't want. If you think about leaders in the Bible, and even Jeremiah's message was rough. He was tough. He didn't have that kind of what you call a charismatic leadership skill. It was very tough. God had given him a message to share with the people that was very tough. And so you also have to go in and knowing that sometimes you're going to make those tough calls and you're not going to be popular. You're not going to be liked. I think you also need to know that when you go in leadership, you're not going to be liked by everyone. And you're going to have to make that tough call. You don't have credibility as a leader. When you can't make the decision or you're indecisive, that's a show and tell that you're not clear on the vision. You're not clear with your team on what objective you're trying to accomplish. That is a big deal. You lose credibility, you lose all the team, all the ability to perform, for them to influence them. So you got to establish trust and credibility, and that goes a long way with making decisions that are unpopular. Right.
And part of that is being given up. And this is what I share with different people, and I'm talking and trying to encourage people. I was like, I got out of the Like Me Club a long time ago, because you can't allow your wanting to be liked influence your leadership. It just doesn't work.
But see, Jermaine, what we typically do, because we are in a society that's heavily driven by social media, it's heavily driven by the likes and the comments and the followers, we have a tendency to err on the side of what is politically correct. And so we have to, as believers in the workplace, we have to understand that making a decision doesn't mean that I don't like you. It doesn't mean that I'm against what you're saying. We have somehow begun to believe that if there's an opposing view or a decision that goes against what we initially thought, that we no longer like the individual. That is not it. We have to learn to, as leaders, think about what's ahead of us. We have to think about the bigger picture. One thing I share with the leaders when making a decision, if you're transparent, you're able to share it's not always about letting employees or letting individuals that you lead know why, but it's understanding that if you know that I have already established trust and credibility, they trust the fact that as a leader, you're making the best decision. And it's been times in my role as a leader where the team did not like the decision I made, but because I had a track record of doing what was best for the team, and here's another thing too. Simon Sinek has a book, and you can look at, not a book, of YouTube, and a book. It's called Leaders Eat Last.
Right.
And for those of you who are out there listening, leaders eat last, but somehow in this society we have confused that leaders go first.
Right.
And you have to become a servant leader. And in that, you need to know that when you serve others, when you actually live out that leadership legacy that you're building, it's not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be popular. And you're going to have some people who say, well, Jermaine, he's not an effective leader, or he can't, he doesn't always go with what the team says. You want to go out there and you have to make a decision as a leader to be the most effective, to make the best decision for those in which you lead. And that is the final answer.
All right.
I tell people all the time when I meet with my leaders, one thing, too, I'm not sure if we're going to cover this, but I wanted to share with the leaders. Oftentimes, leaders get accused of having favorites, especially in the workplace.
Right.
And I always often tell the leader, you have to be very consistent and objective. What you do it's not about treating individual employees the same, but it's about treating processes the same. So, for example, I get this all the time. If you have a policy, you got to follow the policy.
Right.
And there are times when leaders get caught up in the gameplay, and we have to learn to say to our friends, you know how leaders have friends in the workplace. You have to learn to say, you know what, this is policy.
Right.
And that's how you get that transparency. That's how you get that consistency and that credibility. If you lose your credibility as a leader, game over.
Right.
It's over.
That's true.
And respect is out the window.
That's true. And before you know it, you'll be out the window maybe. The organization may do something different, but that is so true. So we're going to do this, Dr. Kim. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's go ahead and give, what, in your opinion and in your travels and with your experience and education, what do you think, if there was one quality of leadership, what do you think that would be? I'm not trying to say what is one word to describe it, but what is one element of really good, effective leadership If you've not spoken to it already or anything, just what could you leave us with on this?
Well, one of the things that I think is the greatest thing, I touched on it very little, but servant leadership. We forget that. We think that we are to be served. And when you find yourself in the workplace, especially as a believer, you are to be a servant leader. You are to provide. Here's the deal. You're to open doors, remove roadblocks, and establish a guideline for your team, establish vision and a way forward. If you are blocking your team members, again, oftentimes I get individual employees who come to me and say, my leader blocked me. Leaders are to remove roadblocks. You are to make the roadway easier. You're to provide resources, and you are to serve the people that are working alongside you. I do not believe in the you work under me or you work for me. You work with me to establish the vision. And so as believers, we have to understand and see the value in the people that we work with, and that comes along with Jermaine. And those of you who are out there listening, servant leadership will take you a long way. You'll get people doing work for you because they work with you.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And not because they work under you. And so servant leadership would be the greatest thing that I think we need to go back to that place as believers of not because you work for me, I cut you a check.
Right.
No, it's because you work alongside me and we have a vision that we're trying to accomplish. And I need everything that you have every single day. I need you to be able to be influential in your role. I need you to be able to come to work every single day and give me your best. And in order to do that, I got to make sure you have what you need.
Right.
So
and I was
you out there listening, Jermaine,
yes.
Make sure your people, you're removing roadblocks and that you're not the stumbling block.
Right. So true. And that's so fun. I was sharing with someone today, we work together. I work with you. Now, we have different roles. We have different responsibilities. But you and I, we are working this thing out together, and that's just that's a very important message to get out, to those of us that are leading teams and managing teams and people. The message should be we're in this together. Yes, we have very different roles.
We are, and you know what, Jermaine? Another thing that sparked in my mind, for those of you who are out there listening tonight, think about this. You have to be an integrist, okay? And your leadership integrity has to be not necessarily perfect, but you want to be consistent.
Right.
And that's the thing. We see a lot of inconsistencies in your leadership style and your leadership delivery. And so you want to make sure that those two line up. How you lead people and what you do as a leader, okay? Because that's big, and we sometimes seem to think that we don't have to walk the talk, that we do. And so as leaders, make sure your integrity is there. Make sure you're treating individuals according to not necessarily the guidelines, but making sure it's consistent with the processes you made. But what really gets me the most when I'm developing these leaders is there's an integrity issue, especially for believers. You got to look the same. When you look in that mirror, what the vision you put out there is what you must walk to. Right. That's a big deal. That Christian character and integrity in the workplace, especially in leadership, that is what gets a lot of leaders, again, in a situation that is unlikely.
All right, Dr. Kim. Well, I tell you what, we have went over, but that's okay. We know that there's a lot of great information out here for this Winning on Wednesday, but there may be those out there that want to hear more, see more, get hands on your product. Go ahead and share your contact information, Dr. Kim.
Absolutely. I've enjoyed tonight's segment because I think it's going to help a lot of leaders. Again, you reached out last week. Do it again this week. Go to drkimberlyellison.com. That's my website, drkimberlyellison.com. We got some amazing things coming up on the horizon, and I look forward to meeting the Winning on Wednesday listeners. Also, connect with me on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. That's Dr. Kimberly Ellison on Instagram and Facebook, and on Twitter it's Dr. K. Ellison. Again, that's all we have on Winning on Wednesday, and we'll see you right here next week.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Dr. Kim. Take care.
All right. Good night.
All right, y'all. Winning on Wednesday with Dr. Kimberly Ellison, and I know that you enjoyed that. A lot of fun, a lot of information, and a lot of truth in what we have just shared. Keep it locked right here to the only 24-hour gospel music station that is indeed Heaven 97 KHVN. It's the evening show. I'm Jermaine Simpson. I'm your host.